My parents bought my sister a luxury apartment while I cleaned toilets, then called me failure. So I smiled, made one move they never recovered from. I, a 25-year-old male, landed my first job when I was 17, working the night shift at this sketchy gas station on the edge of town. It was nothing special, just your typical fluorescent-lit hellhole where I had to deal with drunks at 2 a.m. and clean up mysterious fluids in the bathroom. But I didn't have much choice in the matter. See, my parents made it crystal clear, if you want to go to college, you're going to have to help pay for it. It wasn't a suggestion, it was a straight-up expectation. I wasn't even sure college was my thing, you know? I didn't have dreams of becoming a doctor, a lawyer, or whatever image my parents had cooked up in their heads. But what I wanted never really mattered much in our house. What mattered was their vision. They wanted a son they could brag about at those boring family get-togethers. Oh, Marcus just got accepted to blah blah university and all that crap. So I picked up every single shift they threw at me. Nights, weekends, holidays, it didn't matter. I was that guy who'd cover for anyone. My social life was practically non-existent. Like this one time, my buddy Derek was having this massive 18th birthday party everyone was going, but nope, I was stuck selling cigarettes to the same 5 locals and watching truckers microwave those disgusting burritos that smell like feet, all so I could scrape together enough for tuition. Eventually, I managed to save enough to cover my first semester at the local university. It wasn't some fancy Ivy League place with manicured lawns and stone buildings, but I figured it was good enough to keep them off my back for a while. My sister Kaylee, though, is a completely opposite story. She's 4 years younger than me, the golden child of the family. I have to paint the picture for you guys. Kaylee was that girl in high school who was moderately pretty but acted like she was God's gift to the universe. She learned early on how to manipulate my parents in ways that would make a CIA operative jealous. Like, she'd do this thing where she'd fake cry, but only one tear would come out, and my parents would practically trip over themselves to fix whatever problem she was having. It was actually impressive, in a messed up way. While I was getting robbed at gunpoint, yeah, that happened twice, and dealing with creeps hanging around the gas pumps at 3 a.m., she was busy complaining about how boring high school was, and how her friends were going to beach houses for spring break. And my parents? They'd bend over backwards to fix every little inconvenience in her life. Didn't like her math tutor? They'd find another one by the end of the week. Wanted the newest iPhone? Boom, latest model without even having to ask twice. It was like watching some bizarre psychology experiment where one kid gets all the rewards and the other gets all the work. I didn't resent Kaylee at first. She was my baby sister, and I still felt protective of her despite everything. But as time went on, it became painfully obvious my parents didn't just love her more. They straight up idolized her. They'd sit around at dinner dissecting her minor accomplishments like she just cured cancer, while my 12-hour shifts and decent grades barely registered as conversation topics. Let me give you an example of the Kaylee worship in our house. When she was 16, she got cast as a background character in the school play. Literally had 2 lines. My parents invited the entire extended family over for a celebratory dinner, made a goddamn 3-course meal, and bought her flowers. Meanwhile, when I made the dean's list while working 35 hours a week, my dad nodded and said, "That's what you're supposed to do. That stings, you know? Every dude I've told this story to gets it immediately. You know that feeling when you're busting your ass, and nobody gives a damn, but someone else gets praised for doing the bare minimum? That was my entire childhood. There was this one summer where I worked doubles at the gas station because the AC in our house broke, and we needed to get it fixed before August. Our town regularly hits 95+ degrees. I handed over every paycheck to my dad. When we finally got the new unit installed, guess who got credit at the next family barbecue? Kaylee, because she helped pick out the most energy-efficient model. I'm not even making this up. By the time I started college, I was used to the dynamic. I was the workhorse, Kaylee was the princess. I'd given up trying to compete for their attention because it was crystal clear I'd never win. Don't get me wrong, Kaylee could be cool sometimes. When it was just the 2 of us hanging out, playing video games or whatever, she was just a normal kid. But put my parents in the mix, and she'd transform into this manipulative mastermind. It was like she'd figured out early that there was a finite amount of parental love and attention, and she was determined to hoard it all. The gas station job was soul-crushing, by the way. People treat you like absolute garbage when you're behind that counter, like I'm somehow personally responsible for cigarette prices or the fact that the slushy machine is broken again. I've been called every name in the book, had drinks thrown at me, and once had to clean up after a dude who decided our bathroom floor was the perfect place to demonstrate the after effects of truck stop sushi. But I stuck with it because what choice did I have? Dad made it clear, no job, no college fund contribution. And their contribution was basically letting me live at home rent-free. Everything else, tuition, books, car insurance, that was on me. Meanwhile, Kaylee's future was discussed like she was choosing between Harvard and Yale, when in reality, she was a solid C student who was more interested in her Instagram following than academics. My parents started a separate college fund for her when she was like 10. 10. I didn't even know college funds were a thing until I was filling out FAFSA forms myself. I guess what I'm trying to say is that the pattern was established early. I wasn't just imagining the favoritism, it was blatant, consistent, and soul-crushing. Every kid probably thinks their sibling gets special treatment sometimes, but this was next level. This was we will sacrifice our retirement for Kaylee while Marcus figures his own shit-out level of disparity. Anyway, by the time Kaylee graduated high school, I was already 2 years deep into college, drowning in coursework and now working at a warehouse on top of weekend shifts at the gas station. My parents constantly nagged me about focusing more on school, saying crap like, "You're not getting any younger, and what's your plan if you don't graduate soon?" Like they couldn't see I was killing myself trying to balance everything. The warehouse gig was brutal, but it paid better than the gas station. Instead of dealing with meth heads trying to steal Red Bull at 3 a.m., I was now throwing around 50-pound boxes for 10 hours straight. My back felt like it was 80 years old, but whatever. Money is money when you're paying your own way through school. Kaylee's college prep was a whole different universe. She picked some private university an hour away, not because of the academics or anything practical, but because, get this, she thought the campus was cute and they had good parties. Money wasn't even something she had to think about. My parents covered everything, like seriously, everything. Tuition, covered. Textbooks, covered. Meal plan with unlimited access, yep. New laptop for homework, brand new MacBook Pro, top specs. Meanwhile, I was still using this refurbished Dell that sounded like a jet engine whenever I opened more than 2 browser tabs. But the tuition wasn't what broke me. It was something bigger. One evening, after an absolutely brutal 12-hour warehouse shift where I'd nearly gotten crushed by a forklift, I dragged myself home, exhausted. All I wanted was a shower and maybe some leftovers before passing out. Instead, I walked in to find my parents sitting at the kitchen table with Kaylee, all of them practically glowing with excitement. "We have some exciting news," my mom chirped, her voice all sunshine and rainbows. They'd bought Kaylee an apartment, not rented, bought a whole-ass apartment. "It's just a small place near campus," my dad added, like that somehow made it less insane, so she doesn't have to deal with noisy neighbors or cramped dorm rooms. I couldn't even form words. I was still living at home because rent was completely out of the question for me. Every single dollar I earned went straight to tuition, textbooks, and gas money. I was driving a 1998 Honda Civic that broke down at least once a month, and they just casually dropped probably $200,000 on an apartment for my sister. And Kaylee? She wasn't even grateful. She actually wrinkled her nose and said, "It's nice, I guess, but the kitchen's kind of small." I lost it. "Are you serious? They just bought you an entire apartment and you're complaining about the kitchen?" My mother shot me this look that could have frozen hell over. "Don't start, Marcus. This is a big milestone for Kaylee. You should be happy your sister has a comfortable space to concentrate on her studies." Yeah, right. Kaylee had never held down a job in her life, and she didn't give 2 shits about college. She only applied because our parents made her, just like they did with me. The difference? Kaylee had the luxury of being openly resentful about it while still getting everything handed to her. I swallowed my anger, went upstairs, and slammed my bedroom door. I wanted to scream, to punch something, to make them understand how completely unfair this all was. But what was the point? They just dismissed me like always. "You're overreacting, Marcus." "Don't be so jealous, Marcus." "Why can't you just be happy for your sister, Marcus?" The next morning, I had a 5 a.m. shift at the warehouse. Dad was already up making coffee. I grabbed a granola bar, not making eye contact. "About last night," he started. "Here we go," I thought. "I think you owe your sister an apology. She was really excited about the apartment, and you ruined the moment." I nearly choked on my granola bar. "I ruined her moment? Are you kidding me right now?" "Watch your tone," he warned. Classic dad move. Can't win the argument, so attack my tone instead. "You know what? Fine," I said, grabbing my keys. "Tell Kaylee I'm sorry her kitchen isn't big enough in the free apartment she got for doing absolutely nothing." I left before he could respond, slamming the door behind me. Childish? Maybe. But I was so tired of being the only one expected to be mature and understanding. At work that day, my buddy Jason noticed I was off. "You look like you want to murder someone," he said while we were on break. I told him about the apartment situation, expecting the usual "that sucks" man response. But Jason got genuinely pissed on my behalf. "That's fucked up," he said, shaking his head. Like, seriously fucked up. "Have they always played favorites this bad?" "Pretty much," I admitted, "but this is next level." "What are you going to do?" "Good question. What could I do?" I was still financially dependent on them for housing. I couldn't afford both tuition and rent on my own, not with what the warehouse and gas station paid. "Nothing," I said finally. "Just keep my head down, finish school, and get the hell out." "That's rough, man," Jason said, giving me a sympathetic pat on the shoulder. The apartment became the new family obsession. My parents proudly showed photos to every relative and neighbor, acting like they just accomplished something amazing. If you didn't know better, you'd think they were moving into the place with how much they talked about it. "It's in this really nice area," my mom would gush to anyone who'd listen. "Walking distance to campus, security building, granite countertops." I'd just sit there, trying not to roll my eyes, while silently calculating how many hours I'd have to work to afford even 1 month's rent in a place like that. Meanwhile, Kaylee treated the whole situation with typical Kaylee indifference. After the initial excitement wore off, she started finding things to complain about. "The walls are so bland," she whined one evening while I was trying to force down dinner after a 9-hour shift. "And the couch you picked out is too firm. Can't we replace it?" My father nodded sympathetically. "We'll sort it out, sweetheart." I couldn't hold my tongue. "Why don't you paint the walls yourself? It's your apartment, isn't it?" Kaylee rolled her eyes. "I don't have time for that." Before I could respond, my mother jumped in, her tone sharp as a knife. "Marcus, don't be rude. She has enough on her plate with the move and starting classes. You know how stressful this is for her." "Stressful?" Because God forbid Kaylee faced anything remotely challenging in her life. "Yeah, I wouldn't know anything about stress," I muttered, thinking about my 60-hour work week, full course load, and the research paper that was due in 3 days that I hadn't even started yet. "What was that?" my mother asked, her tone warning me not to push it. "Nothing," I said, shoving my plate away. "I've got homework." I retreated to my room, the only place where I could actually breathe. The moving day was a whole production. Dad rented a U-Haul, even though Kaylee barely had any stuff. Mom bought all new everything: dishes, towels, bedding, cleaning supplies. They spent the entire day setting up her place exactly how she wanted it. I had exams that week, so I begged off helping. That earned me another lecture about family responsibility, but I couldn't bring myself to care. The thought of spending an entire day watching them fawn over Kaylee while I did the heavy lifting was more than I could take. When they finally finished moving her in, my parents came home looking exhausted but satisfied, like they just completed some major life accomplishment. "You should see it, Marcus," my mom said, scrolling through photos on her phone. "It's just perfect for her." I made appropriate noises of interest while wondering if they'd ever put this much effort into anything related to my life. The answer, of course, was no. That night, I made a decision. I needed to get out. Not just eventually, but as soon as possible. This house, this family dynamic, it was slowly crushing my soul. I'd find a way to make it work financially. I'd take out more loans if I had to, whatever it took to escape the constant reminder that I was the afterthought, the one who had to work for everything while watching Kaylee coast through life on their generosity. Little did I know, things were about to get way more complicated. About 3 months into Kaylee's first semester, things started getting weird. She stopped coming home on weekends, which honestly wasn't that unusual. She'd always been social. But when my mom brought it up at dinner, acting all hurt that her baby wasn't visiting, I noticed something. My dad looked uncomfortable, like he wanted to say something but decided not to. I figured they'd had an argument about it or something. Then came the money requests. First, it was just small stuff that my parents didn't question. The utility bill was higher than I expected. I need to buy this special textbook for a class. But soon it escalated to bigger stuff. My car needs repairs. The car they bought her for graduation, by the way. I need to pay a deposit for a spring break trip with my friends. My parents handed over cash without question, and I mean literally cash. I saw my dad counting out $100 bills from the safe in their closet one night when he thought I was at work. Meanwhile, I was picking up every overtime shift I could get just to afford ramen and gas money. One weekend in November, I was at home studying for midterms when my mom came into my room, holding an envelope. "Marcus, could you do me a huge favor?" I accidentally took some of Kaylee's financial aid forms when I was helping her organize last week. "She needs them ASAP for the bursar's office. Could you drop them off?" I wanted to say no. It was my only day off in 2 weeks, and I had a massive economics exam on Monday. But the look on my mom's face told me this wasn't really a request. "Fine," I sighed. "I'll head over there now." "Oh, and maybe take her out to lunch while you're there, my treat," she said, handing me a 50 along with the envelope. Great. So not only did I have to be a delivery boy, now I had to pretend to want to spend time with my sister. But whatever, free food is free food. I tried calling and texting Kaylee to let her know I was coming, but got no response. Typical. She was probably sleeping off a hangover or something. When I got to the apartment, the one my parents had spent their retirement money on, I used the spare key they'd given me for emergencies. The moment I opened the door, I knew something was wrong. First off, the smell hit me like a truck, weed, cigarettes, and something else, something chemical that burned my nostrils. Not just your average college party smell, something worse. The place was trashed, and I don't mean normal messy college student trashed. I mean destroyed. Empty beer cans and pizza boxes littered the living room. The fancy white couch my parents had bought, that Kaylee complained was too firm, had burn marks all over it. There were stains on the carpet that I didn't even want to identify. And there, passed out on that couch, was some stringy-haired dude I'd never seen before, shirtless, covered in terrible tattoos, skinny to the point of looking sick. He was dead to the world, one arm hanging off the couch, the other clutching a nearly empty bottle of Jack. I heard the shower running and figured Kaylee was in there. I kicked the couch, and the guy jolted awake, eyes bloodshot and unfocused. "Who the fuck are you?" he slurred. "I'm Kaylee's brother. Who the fuck are you?" I shot back. I'm not a confrontational guy usually, but something about this dude set off every alarm bell in my head. He smirked. "I'm Tyler, her boyfriend." Boyfriend? Kaylee hadn't mentioned any boyfriend. This guy looked at least 25, with badly done tattoos, and now that I could see his arms better, track marks visible on the inside of his elbows. My stomach dropped. "How long have you been staying here?" I asked, looking around at the disaster zone that was supposed to be my sister's study space. "About 2 months," he said casually. "Your sister's cool, man, real generous." He laughed, like there was some joke I wasn't getting. Before I could respond, Kaylee emerged from the bathroom wrapped in a towel. She froze when she saw me. "Marcus, what are you doing here?" Her voice was high, panicky. She looked thinner than I remembered, with dark circles under her eyes and a scabbed-over sore at the corner of her mouth. She looked rough, really rough. "Mom sent me with your financial aid forms," I said slowly, taking in her appearance. "What's going on here, Kaylee?" "Nothing," she said quickly. "Tyler's just visiting for the weekend." She shot him a warning look. "That's not what he said," I replied. "And what's that?" I pointed to a small metal pipe and what looked like a small baggie of crystals on the coffee table that I hadn't noticed before. "It's nothing." She rushed forward, sweeping the items into a drawer. Just some stuff for a party." I'm not an idiot. I'd worked enough late nights at the gas station to know what meth looked like. Hell, I'd had to call the cops twice on people shooting up in our bathroom. My baby sister, the golden child, was using, and based on her twitchy behavior and weight loss, it wasn't just recreational. "How long has this been going on?" I demanded. "Is this where all that money's going? To support this loser and buy drugs?" Tyler stood up, swaying slightly. "Watch your mouth, bro. I'm not your bro," I snapped. "How old are you anyway? And do you have a job, or are you just living off my parents' money?" Tyler took a step toward me, but Kaylee stepped between us, clutching her towel. "Please, Marcus, don't make a big deal out of this. Tyler's just going through a rough patch and I'm helping him out. We're careful, I swear." "Careful, Kaylee? That's meth. There's no careful with that." I looked around the trashed apartment. The apartment my parents had sacrificed for, had bragged about, had thrown in my face as an example of their support, all while their precious daughter was funding a deadbeat's drug habit and getting pulled into addiction herself. "You need help," I said finally, "and Mom and Dad need to know about this." "No," she shrieked, grabbing my arm. "You can't tell them. They'll kill me. Please, Marcus, I'll clean up. I'll get Tyler to leave. Just please don't tell them." Tyler laughed from the couch. "Baby, you know I'm not going anywhere. We had plans, remember?" He gave me this smug look that made me want to punch him. For a moment, I felt that protective instinct toward my sister. But then I remembered how my parents always favored her while criticizing me for minor things like a B- grade. She dug herself into this. I gave Kaylee 1 week to clean up the apartment and get rid of Tyler, or I'd tell our parents everything. She promised to fix it, while Tyler dismissively told me to leave. I warned her about the path she was on before leaving. In the car, I debated whether to tell my parents immediately. Would they even believe me, or would they somehow blame me? Kaylee texted, begging me not to tell them, promising to handle it. During the drive home, I kept replaying the scene, the trashed apartment, Tyler's smugness, Kaylee's desperation. At home, Mom asked about Kaylee. I kept my responses neutral, hiding my discovery. She mentioned sending Kaylee care packages, which reminded me how differently we were treated. I almost laughed, thinking about what kind of stress Kaylee was actually dealing with. Over the next few days, I wrestled with what I discovered at Kaylee's apartment. The drugs, Tyler, the complete disaster she'd made of the place my parents had bought her. I checked in with her, but her responses were vague. "Working on it, need more time, it's complicated." By day 5, I knew she wasn't going to handle it. I decided to keep quiet for now. Maybe she'd surprise me. Maybe she'd get her shit together. But deep down, I knew better. Meanwhile, I was drowning in work and school. Between warehouse shifts, gas station weekends, and midterms, I was barely functioning. Something had to give, and unfortunately, it was my economics class. I bombed the midterm, complete failure. I knew it was coming, but still, seeing that F on my student portal hit hard. I didn't tell my parents right away. What was the point? They had never cared about my struggles before. But then my professor emailed my dad, apparently still listed as my emergency contact. When my dad confronted me, I explained I was working 50+ hours while taking a full course load. "You need to make school a priority," Dad said. "You're wasting time and money." That's when I snapped. All the frustration about Kaylee's apartment came pouring out. "Who's wasting money? Mine? You're not paying my tuition, but you bought Kaylee a car and an apartment." Mom walked in during the argument. "Don't start that again. Your sister is going through a difficult time. You have no idea. You want to know why I failed? I found your precious daughter's apartment trashed, with her jobless boyfriend doing meth. That's where your money's been going." They didn't believe me. Dad grabbed his keys, and they went to see for themselves. Hours later, they returned, looking devastated. "You were right," Dad admitted. "It's worse than you said." Yet, even then they made excuses for her. "This isn't Kaylee's fault. That boyfriend took advantage of her," Mom insisted. "She chose to start using. She chose to let him move in and lie to you." "You don't understand addiction," Dad countered. "She didn't choose this." They focused entirely on getting Kaylee into rehab, bringing her comforts, while I worked double shifts trying to salvage my grade. A month later, Dad confronted me again about my continued academic struggles. "Kaylee has an addiction. The counselors say she was self-medicating. We failed her," Mom explained. "And what about me? I'm exhausted. Her problems matter, mine don't." "Kaylee's situation is medical. Your grades are about effort," Dad said. The injustice hit me hard. She destroys a $200,000 apartment doing meth and gets sympathy. I struggle with one class while working 2 jobs, and I'm lazy. Nobody said you're lazy. Kaylee didn't choose her situation. Stop. She absolutely chose this. You've never set boundaries for her. Your sister is fighting for her life, and you're making this about you, Dad shouted. "No, you made this about